if I'm not mistaken, I think was it Bogey Man from Oxhumed Volume One was one of the first songs that kind of broke into the light almost by accident. What's the story there?
Absolutely by accident. We, as I said, we all came into the studio with our tapes and our demos and this and that, and he had a cassette of that song, and it was drums and bass and him singing. There was nothing else on it. It was just basic tracks, and it was perfect. I mean, it was about the boogeyman, which in England is the bogeyman. So perfect for a kids show about vampire. Just the lyrics, everything was perfect, and we're listening to the track. John and I are listening to the demo, and I said, "Why didn't the Who ever do this?" And he said, "They thought it was too funny or too whimsical, or so they didn't want to do it." And I said, "Well, it's great." I said, "Who's that playing drums?" And he said, "I don't know." And I said, "Sounds like Keith Moon." And he goes, "Oh yeah, it's him." I said, "Well, John, how can we not use this, man? Let's, get the multi-track, the 2-inch tape, get the multi-track, and we'll overdub and finish the song. Put the guitars on it, the keyboards on it, the rest of the vocals. I'll play some percussion, and we'll finish it up." So he said, "Okay." And John had a tape room, which is the size of most people's bedrooms, and it was nothing but Who tapes or Entwistle tapes or whatever he had done over the years, and mostly 2-inch masters. And he called me up and he said, "I was looking for this tape for an hour and a half. I couldn't find it." And I said, "I'm getting frustrated." And I start to walk out of the room, and all of a sudden I hear bang. And he said, and I turn around, and there's the tape. It had been labeled on the wrong side, and it fell over like, "Don't you dare leave without this tape." And he said, "It was real spooky, man." And I said, "Yeah, okay." And to be able to play on a track with Keith Moon for me was like, I'm another drummer, and I didn't get to really play drums on it, but I played all the percussion and I arranged the parts, and it was just amazing. And so he finds this tape, and when we went back to England to finish the record, we finished that song, and it was amazing to have Keith Moon, all those years ago from the 70s playing on a record that was released in the 90s.
We had Andy Timmons on not too long ago, and it was we kind of likened something like that to stumbling upon something in an archaeological dig.
Right, Oxhumed.
Yeah, exactly.
And Andy did a track for me at Warner Brothers, oddly enough, a song that I had demoed for Eric Clapton. Eric never did it, but he got the demo. But Andy what a fantastic guitar player he was, and just the solos. It was a song called "Vieux Carré," a sort of a New Orleans kind of Zydeco type of thing, but a little bluesy. And Bobby Pridden was good friends with Clapton, and I said, "Man, you got to send this to Eric for me and see if he's interested." And it never happened, but when you mentioned Andy Timmons, the first thing that came to my mind was the brilliant guitar work that he did on that demo. He's a great guy. I've jammed with him several times in New York, and what a fantastic talent he is.
So we were talking a little about Oxhumed Volume 2, which really just goes to show how much material there was to work with. What of this new volume do you think John would be most proud of or most excited by?
Well, I think he would be proud of the fact that we did a lot of his benchmark songs. Whiskey Man, which was the first song he ever wrote, and Had Enough, which in my opinion is my favorite song that he ever wrote. There's a version of Boris on there that actually Keith Emerson arranged the middle part of it. There's that whole orchestration in the middle. And I think he would be proud of the work as a whole because it showcased so many different parts of Entwistle. And the one thing that I think, if he was here, we did Long Live Rock on that. There's a version of Long Live Rock, and that was never in our playlist. It's not something that we ever rehearsed. It's not something, at sound check, we might, somebody might have been playing the fill, the riff or whatever, but we never did it, and our band was so comfortable that we'd be talking back and forth on stage, making jokes. And if you listen, I left a lot of that stuff in the beginning of the live tracks. like the Boris Blues thing. There's a, are we doing the Boris Blues tonight? And we just joke around with that. And I think it was the guitar player starts playing the riff to Long Live Rock. And then the keyboard player comes in and he's playing the riff with it. We're just noodling around on stage between songs. And I looked over at John and went, want to do this? And he went, oh, okay. And then we launch into Long Live Rock. And that's not one that we rehearsed. It's not one that we did more than a handful of times over the years. But that was the band. That was indicative of what we did. It was anything goes, let's go.
No,
and
right in the moment, clicked.
Yeah. And the same thing happened with Sparks and that whole Tommy thing. He knew how it went and we knew how it went, and we just found our way through it, and it worked its way into the set, and just by happenstance. And I think, he loved playing bass guitar, and in all of those songs, he really gets to play. And the fact that we stuck the Eminence front thing at the end of the Tommy thing, it's just, that was the personality of the band. Anything goes. Start doing it, let's go. We start laughing, we laugh. If we start crying, we cry. And it was so liberating. I've never been in a more spontaneous situation musically that clicked so well. It was brilliant. It was just brilliant.
Is there an idea or specific addition that you made that you feel John would have very specifically loved?
I think, the hardest part of doing both of these volumes was doing them without John. Yeah. Because I have to put myself in his spot. And, I think, I wish I had
think like him too.
Well, yeah, and know what he would say. And there's in Whiskey Man, John was 50 some odd years old, way too many cigarettes and shots of brandy, and his voice was not what it once was back in the 70s. And I said, we really have to do some of your stuff. We've got to do Boris. We have to do My Wife. We have to do your classic songs. Had enough. Roger sang, so that Godfrey got to sing that. And I would double him on Trick of the Light or whatever, songs like that. But Whiskey Man, and Love is a Heart Attack, which we haven't even used it yet. He sang them exclusively, Success Story and so on and so forth. And I used to say, are you all right with this? Because we're recording this. And he said, they're not coming to hear me sing. So I said, you know what? He would rather hit a couple of rough vocal notes as a trade-off to the brilliant guitar, bass guitar that he was playing on these tracks, than to scrap a beautiful version because he didn't hit every one of the notes. We know he can sing the songs. Now listen to him play them. So it was, that was a rough decision for me, because I would come across, don't forget, I had to listen to 20, 30 different versions of a song before I found the one that ticked the most boxes. And there was never a perfect track. There was, the one that had the greatest good in it. So for instance, Had Enough. And the one thing that I didn't do, and I should tell you this, there's no overdubs, there's no fixes, nothing was repaired on the live tracks. The studio was the studio, and that's, comes along with all the studio magic. But the live tracks, that's just what it was. It's, there were no fixes, no extra vocals, no repairs of any kind. I wanted it to be as if you were coming to see the band live. And I think what he would have liked was the fun of the band. I mean, yes, I can go into all the furious, live at Leeds stuff, the Young Man Blues and so on and so forth, and Shaken All Over from Volume 1. But I think he would have liked the impromptu-ness of it, the way we joked around. Are we doing the Boris Blues? And he would say, we'll do Had Enough, not to be confused with the same song with another, whatever we said. And, that was fun for us. I mean, we used to like joking around on stage, and the banter on stage evolved over the years. There would be like little inside jokes in the you know, in the band, when he would introduce the guitar player, Godfrey Townsend, no H, no relation, he would say on the guitar, Godfrey Townsend, no H, no relation, no nose, no Ferrari. And it was just, it was just so, it was fun, man. I mean, it was like being in a band when you were a kid, only we're in our 40s and 50s, and you're still doing it. Somebody asked me once, what's it like to do what you do? Because it's the only thing I've ever done. I've never had a regular job. I've always been in a rock band. And I used to try to come up with this amazing answer. Oh, it's like this, it's like that. And I finally said, you know, remember when you were a kid, it was Saturday off from school, springtime, and you rode your bicycle around all day till the sun went down and you barely made it home for dinner? Imagine when you walked in the door, someone handed you $1,000 and said, make sure you do that again tomorrow. That's what it's like to do what I do. And it is. It's pure joy with a payday. Whoops.
Well, there you have it.